Hello, here's Paul Brody. Welcome to my sound installation, Webern from the inside and from the outside, here at the Pierre Boulez Saal, the Pierre Boulez Auditorium in Berlin. This is the Daniel Barenboim Foundation. Here's the beginning of the sound installation, in which people see some of the process of the work. This is a transcription of the voice melody of the actor who read from Webern's letters. And I transcribed note for note the melody of his spoken voice in order to compose. And on the second part here, this is the 12-tone row I sent around the world to have musicians interpret in their own way. Does anybody know about this thing called the 12-tone row? This is where we're going to start. Now, the 12-tone row was a very democratic way of doing music. In so-called, in traditional music, come in. We're used to music that's based on this scale. With the scale, we have a 1 and a 4 and a 5. We have a kind of a hierarchy. Where we're going to go with that? Where does that want to finish? Yeah, that is dominating. That's the boss. We don't want a boss. We want a democracy. So, Schoenberg decided we're going to get rid of that hierarchy of power in tones, in music, and we're going to take the chromatic scale, which is all the notes on the piano. Yeah? And we're going to take those 12, because from C to C there's 12 notes, and we're going to organize them in a way that all the notes are equal. No one note will be more important. That's a big part of the thought behind this thing called the 12-tone row. Now what that did is blasted harmony out of the water. Suddenly there was not this very secure feeling of the one in music, but it was all this floating thing, and there was other aspects that we needed to listen to. Okay? So Webern was a student of Schoenberg, Anton Webern. And in the middle of his life, he wrote music based on this idea. Okay? So this sound installation, which you're about to hear, is taken from certain aspects of Webern's music that inspired me. Okay? The first thing was the brevity, the shortness. Webern wrote pieces that were maybe 20 seconds, 50 seconds long. That's great, especially if you're like me and can only pay attention to whatever we were talking about, right? Okay, so the second thing is, rather than basing the compositional ideas on melody, like Mendelssohn wrote gorgeous melodies, right? Beautiful, long melodies. Oh, we'll go into pop. The Beatles wrote melodies that probably play in our ear every day at one point. Or composers who develop things a lot, like Beethoven. Beethoven, developing. Beethoven developed. Like, what did Webern do? And I like this too. Webern created colors, sound colors, textures in his music. And in this very brevity, very shortness, I call it kind of like sonic fireworks, right? Very fine, sonic fireworks, very brilliant. And then, if you didn't listen, well, that was gone. They're gone. So I took for the sound installation based on Webern. The first part is inside Webern, and that is I took letters from Webern. I took fragments from Webern's letters. And I picked out, with the help of the person from the Contemporary Music Library here in Berlin, we picked out not historically important parts or academically interesting, please come in, but we picked out emotional parts. In German, parts about, come in, Sehnsucht, about yearning, yearning for friendship, yearning for the deepness of sound, yearning for acceptance in some way. And each part of the letters takes about 10 seconds or 20 seconds to read. So that's like a Webern work already. I had an actor read parts of Webern's letters, and then I recorded them, and based on the actor's voice melody, I wrote out the voice melody, which you can see here. We can hear it. And I did a sketch of a composition, And rather than orchestrating it, I left it as a sketch. And what I mean is a sketch, like if you have a piece of paper, and you take a pencil, and you sketch something. It's in black and white, pretty much. Well, you can take colors. You can take paints and pastels and chalk and color it in. Blue and green and orange and whatever. Rather than doing that, I took samples of colors from Webern works. So in other words, if you have a sketch on a piece of paper of a portrait of Raven, for example, who's in the piece, and if you take a sample of a color, maybe a deep blue from Matisse, or if you take a nice swirly pattern from, give me an artist, Van Gogh. He did some swirly things. You put a swirly thing from Van Gogh, a blue from Matisse in, and you take these colors, samples from artworks, and put it into your portrait of Raven. It'll create a work of its own based on what you see, your perspective as an artist, and also the tradition of colors in art. So I took samples of Webern's musical colors and I put them into my sketch based on Webern's voice melody, read parts of reading parts of Webern's letters. The second part of this sound installation is taking these 12 notes and sending them around the world for musicians from different disciplines, from different places to interpret. Well, that sounds nice. It's a little multi-culti, maybe. No, but why does that match with Webern, a composer from Vienna who lived through the Second Viennese School time? Why does that? Well, during Webern's life, Webern experienced the social political boundaries of Europe changing radically. He also experienced musical styles going from classical to romantic through atonal music. He experienced a radical changing in musical, artistic boundaries. So then I thought that was a good reason to send these 12 notes around the world, to collect the sound files and to do a collage composition based on interpretation of this Webern tone row. So I also told the artist, please keep your composition 30 seconds or less. A horrible mistake happened in which I was tired, I was working too much, and I accidentally overlapped. I put two sound files. There's a saxophonist from New York, Roy Nathanson. I've been a fan of his for years, since I was a student. And he sent me an interpretation on saxophone, and I got a sound file on theremin. You know theremin, this round thing that goes. Do you know what a theremin is? Yeah. It's a round ball that works with electricity, and a theremin player from Vienna sent me an example, and a bass player from down the street sent me his interpretation of the row. So I accidentally overlapped them, and they started to sound pretty good. So part of this composition in the second part is you'll hear the different examples, but you'll hear a number of them overlapping, intertwining. Raven's, for example, his guitar is with Verena Veling from the Radio Symphony Orchestra, and Joel Rubin, a fantastic klezmer clarinetist who now lives in Virginia. That's where yours is buried in there. And enjoy listening. I have an appointment. I have to talk with my therapist in a minute, so I'm going to turn this on and I'll be right back.
Bye.